They say technology makes our lives easier. For work, to learn, to travel, to communicate. But there are things that machines cannot yet do. Things as important as engaging, putting themselves in your shoes, having intuition, or making intelligent decisions. In an increasingly technological world, we need professionals who provide intelligent solutions based on their know-how. Because there are things that technology cannot yet do for you. The human tech.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Today is June 18th of 2025. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today in the webinar. I think it's going to be a very interesting webinar. Obviously, we speak about many issues about property, taxes and property and buying property and more the agents, and all what the scenario comes into a property when someone buys a property or sells a property in Spain. But today also we're going to include an ingredient, which is also, I think, is very good for the needs that many of the clients may have or have at this time, which is the equity release. Today we have two very spectacular specialists on this matter, which is Ignacio Pellicer, is one of the lawyers in the East area in Spain, a property expert. Hello, Ignacio. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Pedro. Good afternoon, Michael.
And as well, we have a Michael Davies, expert on lawyer in properties, an expert lawyer in inheritance, and he works in the south of Spain. Obviously, both of them, Ignacio and Michael, they both work in all Spain and attend clients in all Spain, in all the territory. Hello, Michael. Good afternoon.
Hello, Pedro. Hi, Ignacio. Hello, everyone.
Okay, so as the webinar today is regarding buying a property in Spain and equity release. Let's start probably in the end, and which is what is the equity release? What are the conditions? It's going to be a starring issue, a starring service, a starring need that is going to some companies have been offering, and we're going to talk about that. What is the conditions? When is it's focused to you? When is something to do or not? And obviously, we will be speaking about buying property in Spain, which is obviously in general matters, but we, as you know, we like to answer many questions that you may have at this time. And well, if we cannot do it, but please, we will send the emails from all of us in terms of in the future we will be able to attend you. So okay, let's start with the equity release. Ignacio, let's start with what is an equity release in Spain? What are the conditions? Where is focused to who? And then we will be discussing with Michael and myself, and then Michael will be speaking about buying a property in Spain as well in general matters.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Pedro, for the introduction. Thank you, everyone, as well, for taking the time to listen. We're going to spend 1 hour at a time trying to summarize what is the equity release, and obviously the most important thing, buying a property in Spain. The reason why I say this, Pedro, is because one of the conditions that you will have to apply for the equity release will be being resident in Spain. Okay, so let's make it very simple. You must be Spanish resident. Doesn't matter what nationality you are from. Okay, you need to be owner of a property, husband and wife, husband, married couple. Okay, both of you need to be over 65, because otherwise the companies, or this in particular company that we are familiar with, will not even take the case over. Okay, your property needs to be free of charges. So it is not possible for you to apply for the property, for the equity release, if you already have an existing mortgage. So over 65, I do recommend you to apply from it once you are more than 70 or 75, because the older you are, the more money you can receive, and your annuity or monthly pension is going to be higher. Okay, the way it works, the companies, what they're going to do, they're going to just double check that you're resident, that you are married, if you're both applying for the equity release mortgage, and very important, whether your zip code or your area is acceptable for them to take this mortgage. They're not happy to do in every single city of Spain, every single village of Spain, because they study what is possible to get the equity in the long run in the future. So therefore, if you are more than 65, then if you're over 65, then you are resident in Spain, then you don't have a mortgage in Spain, okay? Then one of the requirements, these people, the one that we already dealt with, this company, might be different companies, as we were discussing before, Michael and Pedro and myself, but this one is a very conservative company. What is their aim? Their aim is to facilitate their life to the elderly people, as long as the beneficiaries or the children are happy with it. They're not looking to do this kind of project with somebody against the wishes of the family. This might be good or bad, because you might not even get along well with some beneficiaries or some children in this respect. And then probably this is not for you, because so far they didn't develop that. The reason is because they're always thinking about the Spanish law, and we did speak to the founder of the firm, explaining about the specific of this situation to the elderly expats that are in Spain, that according to British law and UK law, there is no forced heirs. Okay, and Michael later on could talk a little bit about the benefit of making wills, and this is something annexed to the whole state tax planning, estate planning, or future, right? So what happens? You might have a pension. You would like to probably enjoy a bit more about an extra pension. The way to do it is to make a survey report. So it doesn't need to be, it cannot be an expert surveyor appointed by you, so it needs to be by the company. I could tell you the one I'm telling you, they choose their own surveyor, right? And they appoint what we will call a mediator. Okay, so this mediator is going to be financed by the client and by the insurance company. Okay, and banks. So it's a joint venture between this activity here. They're taking now on board an insurance company and a mortgage, a bank company. Now they will choose an independent mediator who will explain online to you and your family what are the possibilities on the table. For example, you're having a property worth 400,000 euros, you are more than 75, and they will do a project depending in the area where you live. Then, depending on that, they will make a project and a proposal which will be treated like an annuity. So from an income tax point of view, is tax-free. So all this is a loan, is a loan that they're doing against the property. And the condition is to be cancelled if both of you pass away. So if one person passes away, the survivor or spouse or husband spouse here will take it over the annuity. So the annuity is going to continue with the whole family. That means whoever goes first. So it's always will get cancelled automatically 9 months after both people passing away. This is a annuity that the project, you will have it on writing as soon as the valuation is made. You provide all the information, all the details, and then we'll give you a project. And then from there, obviously, we need to go to the notary as a mortgage. We need to do acta de transparencia, which is the act, the minute in front of the notary, that you need to understand 100% what it means. And then this is a requirement that they've done with the expat. What they want to make sure here is that you will grant power of attorney to, children will have to accept this scenario and consent. I know for you might be a bit difficult to believe because, okay, if I'm not going to benefit my children, I want to benefit somebody else. What do they have to take to say here in my life? Well, that's the only issue so far this project has for people who don't get along or don't speak to their children, etc., because they're not comfortable enough at this stage for reputation. So what these companies are doing, they don't want any issues saying later on, I didn't understand, my family didn't understand, and somebody just took for a ride my parents. That's really their fear, and they don't want that kind of business. Now, if you are saying, I've spoken to my children are happy with the scenario for me to take an equity release, and then they're happy later on to sell the property, pay off the mortgage, and get any profit to their own benefit. Now, the question here is, nobody knows when we're all going to go, but at the end of the day, sometimes the older you are, the more annuity they pay, because it's like an Excel sheet that they do, and they only
It's like an estimation of life, is that right? You
Correct.
can make some statistic
Correct.
estimation of life.
They do statistics, and they're more interested people more than 75 if possible, because in your case, you're going to get, in this case, much more money as an annuity. And therefore, as well, depending on how long you last, obviously, the repayment, obviously, is easy for the beneficiaries, right? So basically, it's not the same repaying 5 years than 10 years or 2 years, okay? So now another condition, another option you have is cancel this mortgage anytime. The problem we're having with our client when they're very old, they are not allowed to get a mortgage. And that's really a problem because they did already apply for a property, get a property, purchase the property free of charges, but now their pensions are very limited. Okay, well, then we need to know, is our property good enough to get an equity relief, and how much money would I get? Okay, probably, is it 400 euros extra between both of us? Does it work? Fine. Now, the repayment will depend on the date both of the owners pass away. And therefore, the children will have to cancel the debt, sell the property, and get their own benefit. Okay.
And Ignacio, you mentioned about these 9 months, about this, do they have, the beneficiaries, do they have like 9-month period to sell the property and pay the debt?
Yes, they are quite flexible so far. Okay. They just started this project, and they're quite flexible because the whole point, they say they don't want the property. They're only interested to grant a mortgage to the elderly people as long as they estimate value of the property, estimation of life. Okay, so far they are doing as a transparency effect, obviously, since we all need to go to the notary to sign this. Okay, and before that, children or beneficiaries need to accept that on a video conference through the mediator. Okay, actually, the situation is everybody needs to accept, and you will see is gonna see it's they do a fixed rate. So this mortgage is a fixed rate so far. The one is on the table today, 18th of June. I mean, nobody knows what's going to happen in the future, but today the one they're offering in front of a public notary is 6% fixed rate. Okay, and you only able to cancel from the day number 1. So that means even though you sign, obviously they don't give you the whole amount. So it's not like the other about buying a property. You ask for a mortgage, they give you 100,000 euros, and then you have it in your account. This way they don't do that way. They give you a pension. And depending on how much time you live, obviously, both of you, then it will determine how much money you need to pay back. But there is no any Euribor plus 1.2 or whatever. It's just a fixed rate. You know exactly how much, and you could cancel anytime. So let's say you earn money, you win the lottery, and then you could cancel anytime. So the only difference is they only lend you this money on a monthly basis. And the key of the case will depend whether the property is good enough to get this equity and your age. This is how far, Pedro, what I've been studying this product, and I think it might work for a lot of people in this specific situation.
Okay, good. Ignacio, thank you very much. I think it's very interesting in terms of would be a lot of people that may need this kind of, it's like a mortgage, equity release, mortgage that you receive some money and it's part of a loan, it's a part of a debt that in the future the beneficiaries will have to deal.
Pedro, I forgot to mention one thing as well. Two things. One, this is a very new project and they will only deal with solicitors like Michael and ourselves, which they provide peace of mind that everybody understood and understands the whole process. Okay, so they're not willing to do any transaction happily and easily without proper understanding. And another requirement, when I spoke to Madrid lawyers about this product, they want as well as a requirement for us to be the executors and even get power of attorney from the children. So things are very easy and very smooth from day one when something happens. So this is something that it needs to be discussed with the family lawyer that you deal with, obviously somebody that will organize the will and you trust, and then somebody who will, obviously the beneficiaries will grant power of attorney, Pedro, because in the event they want to have everything ready. Okay, so this is basically the situation so far for the expat community. And I've got here Richard Hill from Brexpat in Spain, who's joining us. Richard, hi, Richard.
Hello, Richard.
The equity release doesn't have anything to do with the non-lucrative visa. So this is not a problem, okay? But obviously, to get a non-lucrative visa, you need to have money to apply for that equity release. To come over to Spain with a non-lucrative visa, you need to have the money, okay? Now, obviously, later on the renewal, Pedro, that will prove that you have more money. I agree on the second renewal because at the very beginning, you're not a resident and the bank will never give you that.
You must become resident. And
Correct.
then once you are a resident and you own a property and without any charges, as you said, then you can apply for obviously the renewal.
It's a very good point.
Just one thing I'm just thinking, what it probably would negate, I'm thinking, so for small cases, but would be the renewal of the golden visa if it takes the equity of the property below the 500,000 euro.
Correct.
So be the only case. Obviously, it's probably a bit. It probably won't happen because the clients that do the golden visas aren't the clients that would need an equity.
Exactly.
Just that nobody.
But it's a good point. You said
they can't renew their golden visa because they need.
I agree with that. Yeah.
But Michael, did you know sometimes if you have €1 million, let's say I have €1 million property, and you only need 500.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah,
you could still have the 500,000.
You've got to keep the 500,000.
Correct. So that will be an excellent position if you say, well, I want to live here forever. I want to stay in my house. I want to be looked after here. My children say, do whatever you need to do for your own benefit. We will sell in the future, as you know.
Yes, but then you'd have to ask the insurance company to only put the charge on a percentage. I don't think they do that. I think that would I think it would get complicated. I mean, it's really exceptional situation anyway, because I just can't, because the golden visa clients aren't the clients that do the equity release. But it's just, I'm only just saying that more as a disclaimer than anything else. That it just exceptionally, if you've requested a golden visa, you need to renew it. If you put a charge on the property to allow this equity release, which you would have to, it may cause problems with the renewal of the golden visa.
Yeah, it could be a good point, Michael, but
not for the non-lucrative visa, because that's not affected by the charge on the property.
I mean, at the end of the day, if we have a valuation, I mean, it will be nice to have a case like that, Michael, to see how they will react. But with a valuation and with a mortgage, let's say they grant you only, because they had a case that a property in Madrid, 500,000 euros property, elderly lady, they were allowing her to get 13,000 euros because of her age per month. Okay. Now, if the property doesn't have enough money by itself, but you have a valuation. But yes, you'll bring a good question here. We'll have to do the consultation with the golden
It would
visa
have to
people
be,
before.
I mean, it would have to be looked into. That's all. Just
If on renewable golden visa, if there is a mortgage that cross the line of 500,000 euros, then will not be renewed. That's for sure. That's a criteria. Anyway, okay, well, thank you, Ignacio. And obviously, I can see that there is a tax benefit. Is a loan that is getting, so it's not taxed. It's income that is not taxed. And from the estimation of life, if someone it's estimation of life, let's say year 84, when you are old, 84 years, and well, from that point, if you cross that line, that because you live more than what it was expected by these statistics, then whatever you get will be taxed as like an annuity. And obviously, as we said, this is over 65 or 70 years old. That is the line normally from 70 years old is included in the base of a tax, 8%. So the taxes are very low in this case to be considered. So it's a really tax benefit, and it's not an income, it's not a pension. So it do not have to be reported in tax. It do not count into the tax return. Okay, so let's go right now with Michael. In terms, obviously, the webinar today, we were speaking about buying a property and buy a property in Spain, but we always mix with hiring an independent lawyer, with a due diligence you need to do, an independent lawyer, and obviously all the legal and positions on tax responsibilities by the buyer. So go on, Michael, with this. You are an expert on this, and then we can discuss about it.
Okay, so those of you that don't know me, my name is Michael Davies. I'm a Spanish lawyer, and we're based down in the Almeria and Marbella area. Ignacio and Pedro cover the whole of the Valencia region. They cover a lot of places as well. We for the conveyancing part of our work, we only cover Almeria and Marbella. We do inheritance work. We do other places, but for conveyancing, we stick to this area. Okay, so let me just run you through. How long have I got, Pedro? How long do you want me to do that?
I mean, we have right now
10, 15 minutes.
10, 15 minutes for sure.
The basic process of how the purchase procedure would work in general. So obviously, the first thing is you've got two things. I'd say my mum said I had to keep things. I've got to keep my presentation simpler. so she told me I had to start doing them as if I was explaining them to my Auntie Mary Ann. That's what she's told me. So here we go. She said I was going into too much detail on these other webinars I've done. So this is
Let's go for
explanation. So basically, the first thing we need to do, obviously, we could do the house hunting, and I'd also suggest that you start doing the lawyer hunting as well. In other words, once you've worked out in your own mind what part of Spain you want to purchase in, and that's a very important decision. It would give room for another 2-hour video because Spain has got lots of different regions. They're all wonderful, but they've all got their own little things. And life in Majorca is not the same as it is in Marbella or the same as it is in Alicante. The regions are very different. We've got a lot of options. So once you decide on the area, the second thing that I would do before you find the property is locate a lawyer who you feel comfortable with. The reason that this is in a perfect world, okay? I'm not saying you can always do it this way, but if you can, locate someone in advance. The reason is that once you find the property that you love, suddenly everything starts moving very quickly. They start asking you for €3,000 reservation, otherwise you'll lose the property. So it's good to have an independent lawyer that you found on your own without using the estate agent that's selling you the property, so that you've got him all lined up. So when you find the lawyer, some little words of suggestions regarding the finding of one. One is do not use the lawyer that's been recommended by the estate agent. Doesn't mean that he's necessarily going to be a bad lawyer. It's just it's not a reasonable thing to do. So find your own lawyer, use your own, do your own homework, hunt around. You are spoilt for choice nowadays. 30 years ago when I started, I mean, in Almeria, there was like 4 English-speaking lawyers, you know, and in Marbella, there may have been 15. But now that we've got plenty of English-speaking lawyers and lots of them that do a very good job. There's the odd one that maybe not very good, but in general, I know plenty of lawyers that will do a phenomenal job. If you hire us, all the better, or Ignacio and Pedro up in the Valencia. But in general, there are a lot of good lawyers. So hunt around for a lawyer. Definitely meet the lawyer before you hire him. There's no excuse not to nowadays, because if you can't meet them in person, you can do a Zoom consultation with them, or it's
That's
very
right.
easy, very easy nowadays. Go through the basics. Make sure it's someone that you can feel comfortable with. Also, make sure that he's sort of not only he's got experience with conveyancing, but he also does all the associated matters. Like he's going to be able to handle your wills for you, wills for the expats. They can handle inheritance in the future. That he can do your annual non-resident tax returns. They, including the conveyance, he's also going to deal with the smaller things that lots of them don't like to do, like open up the bank account, organize the powers of attorney, request your NIE number, sort out all the services and put them in your name. You wanted to do the whole thing for you. Okay, so basically, that's sort of what you'll be shopping around for. I mean, you can look at the British Consular website. They've got a list of what they call English-speaking lawyers, but basically they can't say they're recommended, but they're sort of lawyers that have been around for a long time. Ask around in the area where you are. Ask if you open up an account already. Ask the bank manager. Just ask around, and if the odd name keeps popping up, well then that's probably a good place to start. So have the lawyer lined up. So basically, once you've found the property, everything starts moving. So now you'll be putting in an offer, the same as you would in the UK. Put an offer in at 15% below what their asking price is. That's sort of the average sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Do exactly the same as in the UK. Once you've agreed on a price, the agent is typically going to ask for a small reservation to take the property off the market and start involving solicitors. So normally they're after €3,000 to reserve the property, which would be refundable if later your lawyer is not happy with the work. But remember what I mentioned before, your lawyer's already lined up. So the moment you sort of fall in love with the property, even before you put the €3,000, speak to your lawyer, just make sure that the estate agent is sort of an honest agent, etc. If he is, the lawyer will be able to tell you, look, don't worry about the €3,000, put it down, because if something's not in order, I'll just get your money back. But so if you've got the lawyer lined up, he'll be in a position to be able to tell you if he's local. So once you've signed the €3,000, there are different things that you have to line up, which you may have done beforehand, or you can do them at this point. Basically, you need to sign a power of attorney in favor of your lawyer. You need to open up a bank account. If you don't have time to do it yourself, the lawyer will do it with that power of attorney. A lot of solicitors include the service of opening up the bank account in their conveyance fee. For example, we do, and I think Ignacio or Pedro, I think you do as well. But you need to find all these things out. Your lawyer will also start requesting your Spanish NIE numbers. The Spanish NIE numbers are said to be tax numbers. There's no hurry because we don't need them until we complete, but he'll start the ball rolling on all these things, and he'll start asking you about all these things. There's certain money laundering compliance rules that lawyers have to follow in Spain, like in the UK. So we'll need to know, where your money's coming from. The bank where you open the bank account will also, it's very simple. The bank will sort of ask you for your P60s as proof of income, and basically proof of address, electricity bill, a water bill, and they'll need to have your national insurance number or social security number from the UK. And with that, they'll put you through money laundering compliance. You open up your bank account, and you'll be the client of your lawyer, who needs to make sure that you're okay with all this. So the lawyer will then start moving towards the 10% deposit contract. So before I get to that, the power of attorney, if you're still in Spain, the lawyer will organise the power of attorney to be signed at a local notary in Spain, somewhere near his office. It's a 10-minute job. If that's not possible because you're already back in the UK, because you put the offer in while you're in Spain and you move back to the UK, and now suddenly they've accepted the offer, then he'll organise a dual column power of attorney, send it over to the UK, you'll sign in front of a notary, you'll have the Hague's Apostle affixed, and you'll send it back. It's all very straightforward, and all the lawyers that are on the coast, we've all done it hundreds of times, if not thousands of times, so there's no complication. So now we'll move towards a 10% deposit contract. So your lawyer will contact the seller's lawyer, and he'll get hold of all the necessary documentation to do all the due diligence, find out all the searches, make sure it's all in good order, and then he'll start organising the 10% deposit contract. So it'll be 10% minus the €3,000 that you've already received. On very expensive properties, for example, when we do conveyances up in Marbella, and you've talked about a very high value property, then the 10% is negotiable, because it's a bit of a, you don't, especially for example, if the seller's not handling a lawyer and there's no sort of, where do I send the 10% while we're waiting for the completion? So in those sort of cases, you can negotiate the 10% down, and it happens often on very expensive properties. So we sign a 10% deposit contract. Once you've signed a 10% deposit contract, we set a no later than completion date. Sometimes we set an exact date, but at least a no later than, which normally would be typically in Spain 2 or 3 months from the day we sign the deposit contract. Between the reservation and the deposit, normally it'd be anywhere between 15 and 30 days to get that organised. So if all is in good order, your lawyer, by the time the deposit contract has been signed, 10% has been paid over, and then basically by then your account in Spain will already be open. So your lawyer at some point will be contacting you and asking to send the remainder of the purchase price plus the expenses that we'll talk about in a second to your account in Spain in readiness for the completion. In the interim, between the deposit contract and the title deed, your lawyer, if he hasn't done them before, will organise your NIE numbers, have your bank account open, and have everything all lined up, just ready to complete as soon as everyone is ready and he's done all the searches. So that's sort of it in a nutshell. Regarding the expenses of buying the property, there's just a small variation between what you pay in Andalusia, in other words, where I practice, and with Ignacio and Pedro, where they practice. So I'm in the Andalusia region. If you buy a second-hand property, our transfer tax is 7%, while up in the Valencia region, it is 10%. So, I mean, the long and short of it is if in Andalusia you buy a property, all the taxes and fees, because you've got a notary fee, a registrar fee, a solicitor's fee, a transfer tax, notary fee, registrar fee, transfer tax and solicitor fee, all the taxes and fees together, including the other small details like making Spanish wills and things like that, it should all come in Andalusia to 10-11%, while if you're on the Valencia region, it's probably more in the 13 to 14%, more or less. On low value properties, on properties below 200,000, the percentage can be slightly higher, and on higher value properties it can be slightly lower, because there are minimum fees for the notary, the registrar, and they go up very, very gradually.
Okay.
So with new properties, the taxes and fees in Andalusia and Valencia are almost the same because in both cases, instead of paying transfer tax, you pay VAT plus tax. So the VAT is 10% in both regions, and the document tax is 1.2 here, 1.5 up in the Valencia region. And I think up in the Valencia region, you've also got a whole lot of different exemptions for younger people and things like this. But normally, unfortunately, most of your clients and my clients are not in the young group. And there's certain exceptions that the lawyer will always look into to make sure. There are certain, here in Andalusia, we've got one now for very small villages with very low population. They also have got a lower transfer tax. Anyway, you'll have to ask, your lawyer will detect this if there is a lower transfer tax and tell you about it. Once you've signed you've purchased your property. Oh yes, one thing I want to say is that if you buy a property under construction, one of the most important things to do is talk to your lawyer in advance about bank guarantees. You need to make sure that he's going to be prepared within his fee to chase the builder each time you make a stage payment to get hold of your bank guarantee and have it safely in his office. And that basically covers you 100% if the builder goes bust or anything like that, because that's something that happened to the last credit crunch. A lot of people didn't have the bank guarantees, but nowadays that's something that really, I mean, all the lawyers that I know will always ask for the bank guarantees, but just make sure that you speak to him about that and that you expect to see the bank guarantees. After you've purchased your property and you've happily received your keys that you received on the day of completion, it takes the solicitor about 2 months to process the document through the system. But you're the owner from the moment it's signed at the notary. Make sure that if the lawyer deals with expats in general, he'll always offer to make Spanish wills for you. definitely get them done. My main expertise is handling inheritance cases, which you do all over Spain. And I can tell you without any doubt whatsoever that you must make a Spanish will. And then people say, well, is it obligatory? No, it's not obligatory. It's like there's a lot of things that aren't obligatory, but it's you need to do it. As I say, it's my main business nowadays. I've done many years of conveyancing. I still do some conveyancing every now and again. The office does a lot of conveyancing. I'm dealing mainly with inheritance cases now. And I can promise you that if you haven't got a Spanish will, we're talking about, double the fees, double the time. It's just not worth it. Nowadays, almost every expat has learned the lesson, and they've all make Spanish wills now when they buy property. But you need to make sure that you get those done. So the lawyer will suggest making the Spanish wills. That's great. And then basically you've got to sort of make sure you get a home insurance. The lawyer will set up for you electricity, water, rates, rubbish, community of owners, and set up direct debits on that new account that's been opened for you. And then basically everything is in good order. And then on a yearly basis, if you remain a non-resident, there's a small tax that you'll have to get an accountant or a lawyer to present for you each year. If you become a tax resident, I definitely speak to either an accountant or a firm that specializes in taxation for residents. For example, the firm Pellicer, Heredia, who's organized this wonderful webinar, Ignacio and Pedro, they have their own accounting department and do annual returns for residents. In our case, we don't. We only do the non-resident tax returns. And once people become residents and their tax situation gets a bit more complicated, we always suggest they use an accountant or a firm like Pellicer, Heredia. I think that's more or less it, Pedro.
Okay.
Ignacio, but if it's something that you
Perfect.
think
No,
mentioning,
that's
just let me know.
that's fantastic, Michael. Thank you very much for this explanation.
Thank you for
That's
inviting
fantastic.
me.
Okay,
Pedro,
well, we have some questions. Oh, Ignacio, you were going to mention something, yeah?
Yeah, I was going to mention, Michael just discussed about the cost, which I think is important for everyone to know what to expect. I forgot to mention the average cost. Obviously, you'll need to pay your lawyer to get organized and represent you through the mortgage and organizing the wills and the power of attorney. So that's something you need to expect on the equity release with this specific company that they want peace of mind for you and for everyone. Okay. Now, with regards to the cost, like disbursements that you need to expect on these, is not as much as we thought. You need to pay the valuer, who is going to take you, probably it's going to be 350 euros, the valuer, and the mediator, which is going to be 250 euros approx. Okay. One of the requirements they do have as well, Pedro, is you need to have an insurance, home insurance, that covering, as every mortgage needs an insurance. I mean, they didn't say which one, but if you already have an existing one, that will be good enough. About fire insurance. Okay. So, and then whatever your lawyer will charge you to represent you on this. There is no any other opening commission or anything at all whatsoever. Okay. And
perfect. That's good.
Okay, Pedro,
well, I'm reading just some questions. Let's just start with the questions and then just link Tim Tens. Maybe we can have time.
Can I just mention one thing before we leave? I mean, this equity release and things is very interesting. We do. I love doing estate planning that works out well. When you do the estate planning, we're not just organizing taxation. Obviously, that's a big main issue, but we're also organizing basically peace for the family and children not falling out over things, and parents and second wives not getting upset with the children of the husband. All those things. So this equity release thing is just one more instrument, I think, which can be brought out onto the table when discussing, because we do lots of we do lots of meetings with parents and the kids from the other marriage, and we do to try and make sure sometimes with their lawyer back in the UK involved as well. And we also gather on either Zoom. It used to be around the kitchen table. Now it's over Zoom, and just go through things. This is another instrument, and I can see that apart from how useful the actual, in doing it itself is, it's also a great, I think, maybe it could push people into sensible things. Let me give you an example. I can see that, for example, in a situation where suddenly the children who are brought into this discussion about mum and dad maybe doing an equity release because they've got their, they're property rich, cash poor, because they've lived many years, and now that sometimes happens to lots of people. Once if they live over 80, that starts becoming an issue for even people that have been very well off during their sort of working career. So the fact that suddenly this equity release is a possibility sometimes can awaken the children to the fact that they really should be a bit more generous with their parents. And I think it's just another good instrument, because also over the years, we've done it on various occasions when equity release has been discussed with the kids have suddenly jumped into things and think, well, that's, at the end of the day, there's interest, etc. Even if it's a good company like the one that you're mentioning, but they say, well, is there anything that we could do? I think I want to be safe. So what we've done is we've actually done, on the back of all this, talking about equity release and talking about everything on the table, we've had one of the children who's very wealthy, the other one's not. So the wealthy one has said, look, what I'll do is I'll lend them the money. And what we've done is we've done a mortgage in favor of the child, of the wealthy one, because he wants to be protected against the other child who sometimes is half brother or half sister. And we've sort of organized different variations of equity release or just simple loan deeds, but on the back of the equity release being a real possibility if we can't reach an agreement. So I think it's a great ingredient to throw into the discussion with the children, especially when you've got parents that are beginning to be a bit cash poor and property rich. And as a fallback position, I think it's great, and in many cases, it's probably the only way as well. So it's
I agree, Michael. I really think it's a great opportunity for those who, as you said, they made their fortune or the money with the property. Now the pensions are not that great. Children are saying, Mom, Dad, do whatever you need to do. Because, Michael, we have clients, they said that. I'm sure you do have as well.
Yeah.
And they say, do your best. It's your time. Get the money. Enjoy a little bit in life. And we'll pay back because it will sell. Because to be honest with you, Michael, this is worth X amount of money now. But in 20 years or 15 years, you know how prices are at the moment. They're going to be worth more. And hopefully, for this purpose. And then there's going to be equity. Then you're going to cancel the mortgage. Then you're going to transfer the money to the beneficiaries. So it's a win-win situation here. I did share with you some of the requirements because nothing is perfect. You have the issues with the children that they need to accept. You need the issues that the property needs to be in a specific area that they are happy with because they consider it is valuable. They don't want properties for the bank. The bank doesn't want repossessing properties. They want to only help you and cancel the mortgage. So I really think it could cover a majority of cases. Obviously, it's not perfect, but as we move on and the companies realize that is good for everyone, they might change their requirements, Michael, a bit more flexible. But Pedro, I pass it on to you because we're taking your time. And
no, it's okay. It's fantastic. I mean, obviously, at the end, this is we need to discuss. We need to put things in there in terms of discuss and see all the point of view. Well, let's. There are some questions right now on the chat, and I'm going to start reading and by yourself in order to have the answer by everyone on the equity ones. And there is also one question about wills in Spain. And also about unmarried couples that buy property in Spain. Let's start with the equity release questions. There are a couple of them I can see at the beginning. It says, in the event of equity release, do I continue to own my property outright? What happens if either of couple has to go into residential care?
Pedro, where are you? What
I think it's 1811.
1811. Right. In the event of equity release, do I continue to own my property outright? Yeah, you're going to carry on being the owner of the property. The title is still in your name. The only thing that there is a mortgage that you'll have to cancel in case of selling before passing away. So what happens if either of couple has to go into residential care? Right. I mean, this product is not really designed for that scenario. Actually, there is for people who wants to live and be care in their own property. If that was the case, John, then the only option you will have eventually will be selling, cancelling, and moving into care. But probably this is not probably the product that will suit you or your people. Okay, Pedro?
Okay, well, let's go to also for the question, but I think it's by Jacqueline.
1806 has got some good questions.
Exactly, 1806. I was going to go into that one.
Yeah.
In the last question, which is, can you write a will in Spain that complies with U.S. state law without being in the U.S. state when making it? I mean, about wills, doing it in Spain, in Spain's territory, worldwide. Michael.
Yeah. Okay. So, okay, I'll just take the on that same 1806. I see there's sort of two questions. I'll go with the one first because they're related. What should unmarried couples know about buying a home in Spain together before they are married, and what to know if they later marry each other? Okay, so there's no problem in doing it. You buy the property while you're not married, and then get married. Make sure you tell the solicitor later. The important thing is at the moment of one of you passing away, you want to be married, because the difference in inheritance tax in Spain is incredible. People can't believe what a difference there is if you're married, if you're not married, to the purpose of the inheritance tax. So it doesn't matter though, as long as you're married at the time of death, it doesn't matter whether you weren't married before when you bought the property or anything like that. It makes no difference. Can you write a will in Spain that complies with US state law without being in the US state when making it? Okay, so what we always recommend is one will made in each country. Okay, so in Spain, for your Spanish assets, you make a will in Spain. We follow Spanish formalities, which is we sign in front of a notary, have it registered in the Central Register of Wills, etc. And it sounds a bit complicated, but you actually sign the will in Spain, but you're allowed to make it conforming to the law of your state in the US where you're from. In other words, and not comply with the Spanish system of obligatory heirs. But that will is for Spain. Then regarding the will that you want to cover your assets in the US, what I would recommend is that you speak to an attorney in the US and have him draw up the will. If you don't want to do that, I can always make the will in Spain valid for worldwide assets, but later on it will need a convalidation process with Hague's Apostle, official translations, various things. I always recommend, if possible, one will for each country, and then you use a lawyer in each country to prepare your wills for you.
Okay, that's perfect. Thank you, Michael. Let's go through. I mean, Ignacio, you want to answer any questions? Just please go ahead, and Michael, yourself as well. I can see there's one question by Tom.
Pedro, before you go, as Michael said, and I think it's exactly the same in Andalusia, if you don't even want to go through the marriage, you could do the partnership and then register the partnership. Michael, I think Andalusia is exactly the same, isn't it?
Yes, and
for the inheritance tax, I'm talking about
the law says that civil partnerships are the same. So, if you, for example, have a civil partnership coming over from the UK, we've got no problem; it's all good.
In Spain, I'm talking about register.
Our recommendation, and it may not be legally, I can see why you'll say to me, well, that doesn't really make sense. But in practical terms, I always tell people that because the difference in inheritance tax can be so huge, and the different systems that exist in Andalusia to register civil partnerships are a bit sort of all over the shop. There's different ways, etc., of doing it. I always recommend get married. As if what we're talking about is inheritance tax, and me dealing with the inheritance tax declarations later on and saying to them, don't worry, you will get the 100% exemption because you're married, because that's what you're allowed if you're married. I prefer they get married, because the way I see it is, in the old days when same-sex marriages were not permitted in Spain, the tax office was very flexible on civil partnerships and all this system, because they didn't want to be accused of discrimination. But nowadays, everyone can get married. It's just a contract. You can do it at church, in the town hall. You can do it anywhere. So what we always say, You know, we're
Naturally.
talking about, you know, I mean, sometimes we can be talking about saving €1 million, you know, so if you've got a very high value property, whether you get married or not. So I say, well, you know, what's the point? Just get all the paperwork. It's true, to get married, there's more paperwork. And a tax man knows there's more paperwork. It's more secure, more this. So that's why I just say, look, just get married. And then I know for certain we're not going to have, oh, but I'm going to register my civil partnership with the town hall. You know, I just don't want, I prefer not to go down that route. And if they want to do it, they do it under their own risk. I just prefer to get them to get married. I know, as I say, I understand that technically a civil partnership in Spain is treated the same by the tax office. It's just that I'm always concerned, the higher the savings and the larger the stakes, the more
to be
complication.
honest with you, Michael, in this region, it's taken an average of 8 months to register legally the partnerships at the Comunidad Valenciana, the registry, civil registry. But I agree. I mean, we normally do organize, believe it or not, even the marriage in front of a public notary, you know, because we are doing that for all the tax planning that you're talking about, which is very wise. And we're talking about thousands of euros because we're going up to 37% if you're just a friend. But if you've got this paper and you're married, then in Andalusia particularly, well, these areas, well, Michael, thank God now, we've got very good allowances, you know.
Great. Great.
Let's hope it lasts. We don't know. You never know with the law, but let's hope it lasts.
Yeah, no. Now the three competing regions, you know, the Valencia region, the Balearics, and Andalusia, have basically all got fantastic deals for spouse and descendants now. So I mean, if people are looking for a good place for inheritance tax, Spain, if you keep to one of these three regions, well, Madrid region's got the same more or less system as well. They're offering a very good deal in Spain at the moment.
Actually, for those for the children is great because group one is protected. So husband, wife, husband, children, and grandchildren are part of group one, which is family in a way. And we're talking about probably peanuts in this community to pay, and that's very good. Pedro, Michael, Richard has a question here. If the person, Richard from Brexpat in Spain is on the other side, Richard, if the person has to go into a care home, can they keep the property until they die rather than selling it? Very good question, but that's only husband and wife. So let's put it this way, Richard. If by any reason, husband and wife, and then you need to go into care, right, you could carry on, but you have to be financing the care, and the wife or the husband will carry on receiving that annuity, right? But yes, the answer is yes, but I don't know whether finance is going to make a lot of sense because they will need to start spending money on home care, and then having a property might be worth it, probably selling and getting the money and probably being together at the residential. But technically, Richard, the answer is yes. You could cancel the property mortgage anytime, even while you're alive. So to be honest, is the only mortgage somebody over 65 could get for these purposes. You could get for specific, but you know how the banks are, they're very difficult to grant different kind of mortgages. But yes, Pedro, sorry, I took that question.
Let's go. That's fantastic, Ignacio. That's fantastic. Let's go ahead with some other questions by Tom. He says, I am joined as 1809. I am joined US and Ireland citizen. Does my US citizenship provide any advantages in the purchasing process? Michael or Ignacio, whoever you want to answer.
I don't know if Michael wants to take it.
I don't know. I did. What's
this? At 1809. I am a joint US and Ireland citizen. Stop.
I mean, I'll go for it, Michael, if you don't find it. Can you find it?
Yeah, I found it. I'm happy, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really mean having a different nationality. I mean, even though you probably heard different bits and pieces, Michael, what we talk about buying, if you're a non-European buying as a European, probably that's why Tom is getting confused here. so far is exactly the same whether you're European, non-European to buy a property in Spain. A different matter is whether you're going to rent it out as a non-tax resident or whether you are going to pay. Yeah, that's basically renting it out is what makes the difference, and the income tax return is a bit different. But so far nowadays is irrelevant. It will depend, as Michael stated, in what community you're going to be buying the property, which will vary the cost of the budget. Tom,
Yeah, Tom also asked, I am 60 years old and not yet a resident of Spain. What options do I have for financing apart from paying fully in cash?
well, if he's 65 years old, I'm not sure, Michael, your experience. At 65, they will want guarantors of the children to get a mortgage to buy a property in Spain. So
I'd say as a non-resident over 65, it's almost impossible.
It's almost impossible.
It's almost impossible.
It's difficult,
I prefer to say it as it is because it sounds a bit cruel, but basically it's more or less impossible.
It's difficult,
and
yeah.
if you do get a mortgage, it is going to be extremely expensive because it's completely out of what they consider their comfort zone.
Probably the other way around, Tom, is, as you said, apart from paying fully in cash, pay cash, make yourself resident and go for equity release. That will be an easy one, depending on the value of the property, okay? And the years. Yeah.
Okay, I don't know if you want to answer any more questions. I think we are running out of time. Michael and Ignacio. Yes,
Michael,
to summarize.
Yeah, I would just like to mention the importance that Michael said about doing tax planning. And the whole point here is, well, sorry, not only tax planning, is the inheritance planning, as Michael stated, is so important. This is part of planning your future after 65, having a goodwill here in your home country, having the taxes already in place, having your executors with instructions of inventories and things, what to do in case of, having power of attorney, very, very important. And if this product suits you to get a better life, is part of the advice that lawyers, authorized lawyers, will be able to do. So I think it's important everybody reviewing their wills, their power of attorney, and still, even if you go for a mortgage or without a mortgage, try to get power of attorney between husband, wife, husband, or the children, or through your solicitors. Because as somebody said, you could go into care, you could then later on want to sell, and then without power of attorney, if you lost your mind or you're incapable to make decisions, this power of attorney is going to save you a lot. So I think Michael insisted a lot of times on doing wills.
Yeah, so I've been through that situation very often. In other words, so the typical example, and it's a horrible thing to talk about, but I mean, we've been in the situation various times, and therefore now we plan for it. And that is that, there are a couple over in Spain. One of them is diagnosed with Alzheimer. It starts getting worse and worse and worse. It gets to the point where they completely lost consent as far as the Spanish notary is concerned. They're in a home, and then the spouse, comes to us, another lawyer. They want to sell the property because they want to move themselves back to the UK. And of course, the person that's lost consent goes to the notary, and the notary won't let him either sign a power of attorney or sign a sale of the property. Unlike what happens in the UK, once you've lost your mind, you can go to the family courts and get a power of attorney in arrears of the situation. In Spain, it's an absolute mess. So in Spain, you have to sort of organize in advance. So what we always say to people, to clients of ours, people that we've known for many, many years, and you sort of see them every now and again. If one of the couple says, Mary comes and says, John's not feeling very well, you can tell he's been diagnosed with Alzheimer's at the beginning. Definitely get yourself to a lawyer, get to a notary, and sign reciprocal powers of attorney between the married couple. So it means then that, it can be done. It doesn't have to be explained to John, we're doing it because you're not feeling well. Just that he's still okay. He still knows what he's doing. So you take them both to the notary, and they both sign reciprocal powers of attorney. So one can always sign everything for the other. So it then means that if John does lose his consent, which may even happen years later, but then by then nobody's thinking about it anymore. He's now lost consent. Now Mary says, I want to sell, I want to move myself back with John back to the UK. She can use that power of attorney that was signed in her favour by her husband when he was still okay, and use it to sell the property and, you know, deal with everything and get themselves back to the UK. I mean, there can be many variations of this sort of problem that we've just explained, but that's sort of the gist of it. In other words, I mean, we always think that when obviously powers of attorney, reciprocal powers of attorney between spouses, it's a trade-off, because obviously the trade-off is they could also allow one of the spouses to run away with everything. Okay, so we always say that if a couple of 50 years old, they both come into the office, they're all jumping around, they're all happy and young, and they say, we're going to do the will, should we do reciprocal powers of attorney? Well, I always say, well, it's not something that I'd suggest at the moment. It's something that when people, they've been married for 50 years and they're now 85 and we're doing their wills, normally at that point, we would start suggesting that as well as the wills, they do reciprocal powers of attorney between them. That's how we sort of.
Okay, thank you, Michael. I think we are running out of time. Just thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Important about all the what has been mentioned by Ignacio and Michael about planning is essential in order to make decisions. Thank you. I hope this webinar has given you valuable insights on this, on about property, about equity release, which is a new thing that obviously we are right now informing. And well, see you next time. I don't know what you want to summarize, Ignacio or Michael, just a quick and brief recommendation.
No, basically, I just share with you guys the emails. Feel free to contact either of us for a further consultation, video conference, or more info. And as long as it could be used, this webinar will be recorded, I guess, Pedro, so they could always watch.
That's right. Perfect.
Yeah.
Michael?
Okay, thank you.
A great webinar. And just remind everyone that this webinar has been done on what's the 18th of June 2025, and this is becoming more and more important now because as you just mentioned that you're going to put it on your.
I say the date at the beginning because we always do that.
Changing, so this is the correct advice as of today.
Okay,
all right, Michael.
Fantastic.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank
Thanks
you.
for inviting me. Bye. Thank you. Bye.
Buying a property in Spain. There are many reasons to purchase a property in Spain. The climate, the food, the culture, or simply to enjoy life. If you already see yourself buying the house of your dreams in the Mediterranean, it is important to be cautious and follow a series of steps. First, prepare a budget and take into account all the possible expenses. Remember to add transfer tax or VAT to the sale price, as well as legal fees, notary fees, and land registry fees. And even if it was love at first sight, do not rush or sign anything. The most important thing, especially if you're not yet a Spanish resident, is to hire an independent lawyer, a specialist who speaks your language and solely defends your interests. Together, you can review the characteristics of the house. Should it have pending charges, negotiate a mortgage with the banks. And you will always be up to date throughout the whole process. But most importantly, fall in love with your property and do things by the book. Your new life starts there. Pellicer and Heredia, international lawyers.